Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I know many of you flew in last night or over the weekend to enjoy the Mountain West, and we're so glad to have you. We've got analysts, investors, even patient advocates who are here for us. And it means so much to have all of you come and join us, our investors as well. So thank you. Thank you for coming out to learn about Recursion. As we dive into the day, I want to just set the stage a little bit for you and share our hopes for what you will take away. And the most important thing is that we want to be able to provide you with updates around all of the key elements of Recursion, our pipeline, our platform, and our partnerships. And we're going to be able to talk today about each of the clinical programs. We have more than 7 readouts coming in the coming 18 months and the months beyond. 5 of those efficacy readouts, 2 of those are going to be phase 1 readouts. And we're just so delighted to be able to start to reap the fruits of all of the work that we've been building on this platform for the past decade. And I think the 7 programs in the next 18 months is just the beginning of what you're going to see in the decade to come. Beyond that, we have incredible partners. We have just incredible partners in Roche Genentech, in Bayer, in Tempus, in Helix, in Enamine, and of course our incredible partners at NVIDIA, who we'll hear from later today. And we want to be able to share some of the updates from those collaborations with you as well. And then finally, our platform. I think unlike many other biotechs, we've been investing in building a platform to help change the pace and scale of drug discovery. That's what we're here to do. And you'll get a chance to see that platform in action today, to hear from the team that's building it, and to understand some of the things that we've built in the last 18 months and some of the things that we expect to build going forward. And I hope we can also help define for you a moment that we believe is happening right now as the world begins to transition from biotech to TechBio. A moment when compute and technology are going to be as core to the biopharma industry as any other tool has been. And we think that moment, which is really years, is happening right now. We're right at the inflection point. We see the C-suites and the boards of large pharma companies starting to take seriously the opportunity that comes with machine learning and AI. And we see companies like Recursion better positioned than almost any other to take advantage of this moment. And we want to convince you today that that is true. And finally, unlike the last download day where we had almost entirely Recursion or Recursion-associated folks speaking, this time we wanted to bring in a variety of folks from outside the company who could share with you their perspective, either our collaborators from Genentech or Bayer, KOLs and researchers working on some of the targets that we're advancing, and of course, Ryan, I'll spoil it, Jensen, who's going to be joining from NVIDIA later today. We're so excited to let you hear from them how they see this transition from biotech to TechBio. So I want to set the stage a little bit for the moment that we're in. And in some ways, it's a tale of 2 cities. On the biotech side, we're at the end, I hope, of a 60-year trend in declining efficiency in R&D. This is the number of new medical entities discovered for each $1 billion spent adjusted for inflation. And you can see that it's been going down. And luckily, over the last couple of years, it seems to have stabilized. But it is not stabilized at a good place. The IRR on invested R&D in our industry is not as robust as we would all like it to be. And of course, there are winners in this space. And ultimately, those winners help advance the cause for patients. But I believe with technology, we can do much, much better. And on top of this declining R&D efficiency, we also are facing, going into the 3rd year of really challenging capital markets for biotech. And so there's a lot of headwinds in the biotech world. Contrast that with the technology world, where it seems like every day there's a new headline about a new AI advancement, a new technology advancement. The capital markets are robust behind these companies. There's dramatic increases in compute that are happening. And you really start to see the difference between these 2 worlds. And I think it's been magnified over the last 2.5 years. But what we see happening right now is this evolution of biotech into TechBio. And we believe, and I think increasingly the world believes, that this transition is not a question. It's not a question of whether it will happen. It's a question of who will drive it, when it will happen, and how it will happen. It is inevitable. And the companies who are going to bring this transition are companies who can work at the interface of tech and bio, companies who are bilingual. And thank you for coming, because you can look around today and you can see what a bilingual team looks like. We have biologists and chemists, some of these folks having spent decades in the biopharma industry, sitting next to machine learning researchers, data scientists, software engineers. This is what the future of biopharma looks like, and you're seeing it today. And companies who invest in generating the data, in creating the automation, and the compute that is necessary to operate at this interface, those are the companies who are going to own this evolution. And we believe that Recursion is better positioned than almost anyone to take advantage of all of these tailwinds. So I want to go back a little bit from this moment to the early days, back to the early 2010s when Recursion was founded. There were about a dozen TechBio companies back then, and each of us started with a point solution. For us, it was this assay called cell painting, popularized by Ann Carpenter at the Broad, and we became the pioneers of industrializing this assay. The entire laboratory that you see to your right is built to generate images of human cells from which we can leverage computer vision and machine learning to extract signatures of what is happening, what the cellular state is. And this new kind of omics is driving a revolution. In fact, today, almost every one of the top 20 biopharma companies is building out these sorts of assays based on cell imaging as a new kind of omics. But we're half a decade ahead. In this laboratory this week, we will do more cell imaging assays than I imagine any of the large biopharma companies will do in the entire year. We have scaled this better than anyone. But at the end of the day, point solutions are not enough. We can discover new targets, we can identify hits, we can even optimize our molecules using these technologies. But over the last 3 or 4 years, we've begun to build the entire stack, the complete vertical. With the same philosophy that we drove to phenomics, we're now deploying across so many different steps in drug discovery and development. And we've earned the resources to deliver this by being pioneers in this space, by being seen as leaders. And today, we're going to be able to tell you about each of these tools, technologies, techniques that we're using, but all of them are based on the same kind of framework. We generate data, we make predictions from that data, and then we test ourselves. And we believe that the companies who can stitch together all of these different point solutions into a workflow are the companies who are going to recognize the compounding efficiencies of technology across discovery, translation, and development. And we believe that Recursion is the company that is furthest ahead in this race. And I hope we can convince you of that today. And we're not just building the technology, we're building ways to interface with that technology. At JP Morgan this year, we talked about LOW, our LLM orchestrated workflow engine, which is allowing a scientist who's not an expert data scientist or a chemist who's not familiar with coding to leverage the entire Recursion Operating System to help discover and develop medicines. And as we shared a little bit earlier this morning with our 8K, we just announced that Bayer is going to be the first large pharma company to leverage this tool to help us discover medicines together. That is so exciting. And just to give you a sense of timing, the Valence team showed the early idea for us to us in October of last year. We had a minimum viable product at JP Morgan in January, and now we have one of the largest biopharma companies in the world who's going to be integrating this tool to help discover medicines with us. We think that is what the future looks like. And we've moved beyond just generating data of cells to generating data in animals to looking at data from humans. And we've begun to start to train models that don't just identify patterns across a given data layer, but increasingly, we are now training foundation models at Recursion that work across multiple data layers. And the reality is no one data set is going to be sufficient to truly decode biology, to decode chemistry, to help us radically improve lives at scale. But by stitching together one of the most compelling sets of data across multiple different levels, phenomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, in vivomics, genomics, patient data, and training causal AI models across all of these different layers, we believe that we will be able to start to extract extraordinary signatures of biology, not just at the gene level or the protein level, but at the organismal level. And if we can do that, we truly believe that there will be a fundamental shift in the pace and the scale of discovery, And it will be companies like us, companies building an operating system, who will underlie that shift. So I want to go back to today and ask the question, where are we in this shift? And I'm going to start by talking about transportation and communication, the horse and the letter. We are in the very early stages of this transformation. Recursion is a little bit like that early car or that early telephone. We are fundamentally changing the way that one discovers and develops medicine, but we have a long ways to go. And in the coming decades, you're going to see this continued transformation, the addition of new modules, the addition of new technologies, new data science techniques that are going to work together in a vertical to help us bring new medicines to patients much more quickly. And over the last decade of building, we've learned a few things. We've learned that fit-for-purpose data is absolutely critical. If you're not building the right data sets in this space, the public data sets that exist today are increasingly being commoditized. People are making the same conclusions off of those data. To stand out, to build a moat, you have to build the data. That is the differentiator. And I don't think anybody else is building it as well as we are. Beyond the data, you have to invest in the compute. We'll talk a little bit later about BioHive 2, our supercomputer, which is just a few miles down the road that we built in partnership with NVIDIA. Recursion, a small public biotech company, owns and operates the fastest supercomputer in the entire biopharma industry. We are making bets where others are scared. This little company is making big bets because we believe that when you bring together data and you bring together compute at scale, you're going to be able to move from very specific solutions to generalizable solutions. Foundation models with emergent features that help us start to understand broadly the way biology and chemistry is interacting. And we're already starting to see those signs in some of the foundation models that we've built today, and it is tremendously exciting for our team. And we're not just building with our own tools, we're even taking tools from the AI world, like LLMs from big tech companies, and we're tuning them to help us do our work more efficiently. If you were to go back to 2022, Recursion had 40 full-time equivalent employees who were working on looking at all of our data and all of the public data to identify arbitrage, places where we had robust signal about some new target or interaction that we thought we could drive to be a first-in-class or a first-in-disease medicine, because that's the kind of place that Recursion wants to operate. And in 2023, we started tuning LLMs to automate this process. And today, in the first half of 2024, with one full-time equivalent, just kind of running the thing and making sure it doesn't break, we have initiated over 201 program hypotheses. We are automating the process of looking at our data, looking at all the public data, and finding places where we have belief that there is something new and novel that we can drive as a potential medicine to patients. And then for very, very small dollars relative to the traditional methods, we can validate those hypotheses, which means we can flood our teams with so many exciting ideas that they can pick the very best ones to drive through translation and into the clinic. And I think you're going to see over the coming half decade the pace and scale of this flywheel as it really starts to turn. And what it also means is that the 39 FTEs that were working on identifying those programs are now working on much harder problems later in the process. So we're becoming more and more efficient. This little team, even though we haven't grown a lot for the last couple of years, is generating more and more value year over year. So I believe we are the leader of the TechBio space. But the question is, how do we stay the leader? How do we lead this revolution of biotech into TechBio? And I believe there's 4 ingredients: people, data, compute, and capital. And I don't believe there's any other team in the world as compelling as the one that we have built here at Recursion. You'll get to meet many of them today. You'll hear from many of them on this stage. But it's not just the software engineers, data scientists, biologists, chemists, people in finance, people in facilities that make this company run. It is our partners. It's our partners at Bayer, our partners at Roche Genentech, who we learn from. It's our partners at Tempus and Helix and Enamine, and of course NVIDIA. And together, this little company with these incredible partners is going to fundamentally change the way medicines are discovered. And the way we're going to do that is through the generation of fit-for-purpose data. You will see today, through this laboratory and laboratories across the street, and our in vivo facility in Southern California, that we are able to generate data at a pace and a scale to iterate on that data in a way that few other companies, even 10 times our size, are able to do. And we've already talked about compute. This little company has the fastest supercomputer in the world. You'll hear today, it's the fastest supercomputer in biopharma in the world. Important point. I saw the lawyers wince just a little there. We've made these investments because we believe the intersection of data and compute is the future of this industry, and we intend to lead it. And this computer has already helped us drive to multi-billion parameter foundation models that we're going to be able to share a little bit more about in a few minutes. Very excited about this. And it's only been up and running for, what, 6 or 8 weeks or something like that. So really, really exciting times. And of course, capital. We have been lucky to have been able to earn capital from all of the investors who have supported us for the past decade to take this big swing at trying to build something different, to trying to build a different kind of company. And I believe we will continue to be able to earn that capital, but we are on the precipice of moving in the coming years to a new stage for Recursion. As we read out clinical assets at relative scale, as we start to sign additional significant partnerships and drive milestones and maybe even royalties from the partnerships that we've signed, I believe Recursion will be entering a more sustainable stage in the coming years where we won't have to rely on the capital markets as much. We'll be freer to build this company at the pace and scale that we believe it deserves. But a huge thanks to all of you who have supported us and continue to support us going forward. So I just want to end with one thing, and that is our purpose. Recursion exists to run an experiment, not the experiments that you see in the laboratories here. It exists to run an experiment to ask whether or not there's a different way to discover and develop medicines. Because despite incredible people across the industry working hard for decades, failing in the clinic 90% of the time is not good enough. Nobody wants that. Not the companies, not the patients. And few people are taking the really big bets to transform the process of discovery, the modalities of discovery. We look back at the Regenerons and the Genentechs and the Alnylams, and we believe there need to be more companies striving to build those kinds of platforms. That's what this industry needs. It doesn't need the 7th or the 8th or the 9th drug targeting mechanism X. And we intend to run that experiment here. And if we are successful, I believe we can have dramatic impact, not only on patients, but on the industry writ large. And that ultimately will be for the benefit of patients as well. So thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here.